All right, let's go ahead and get started here. I've got 12 noon on the dot. So got a nice crowd today. It looks like a lot of folks are going to be interested in the video afterwards. So that's all perfectly fine. I fully encourage you to participate. This is a hot topic that's coming up here pretty quick that we are all going to be dealing with in one way or another. So we're going to do a 1 hour program today, and we're going to look at my salary is what? The 2024 changes to the exempt minimum salary test. And actually, we're going to go beyond that because we're going to look at a lot of things that are going to happen here in the next 6 months and then every 3 years after that. So that gives us a lot of stuff to talk about. All right. Now, first and foremost, if you know anyone else who wants to sign up for these free videos, every month we talk about something that has to do with brain health. We have something to talk about with tolerance, inclusion. We have something to talk about HR law. So it's kind of funny. I will get different types of requests from people. I'll shoot something off that something's coming up and they'll say, I thought we were going to do tolerance. I thought we were going to do brain health. Well, if you kind of look across the board here, I have a lot of things that interest people because they interest me. I'm an HR guy. I'm also an attorney. So yeah, some months are going to be about technical issues on employment law. Some months are going to be about tolerance. Some months are going to be about diversity. Some are going to be about pure healing the human brain. And so if you have preferences that you say, hey, I want to be seeing something on this, hey, shoot me an email. And there's always lots of stuff to talk about. Now you'll see me look back and forth across here to everyone. And that's just me checking on everyone. And if anyone has
Hey, Scott, I think you muted yourself.
There, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. No, so sorry about that. Yeah, trying to run two screens here is a little tricky. So, but every month we're going to talk about something different. And if you have a preference, let me know. Also, if you want to participate, speak up. That is the best way. It's almost like we're there. If you got your camera, turn your camera on, and we got all kinds of fun things to look at. All right. Now, just as a little heads up here, we are going to spend more time in 2 weeks. Friday, June 21st, we're going to look at the wage and hour exemptions in detail and how they apply to these new minimum salary tests. Okay, so it's a lot of stuff, but we're going to take about 3 hours and we're going to look at wage and hour on the exemptions in detail because I'm getting a lot of questions on things that have not changed and a lot of questions on how the tests work in the first place. So I think it's going to be a good refresher for a lot of people. And I think that's a good thing for us all to take a look at. All right, so mark that on your calendars. You can go to my website and sign up. And everyone out there who is part of SOCORA, the South Central Ohio HR Council, you can come for free. Everybody in my chapter can come to those half-day sessions for free. So if you want to sign up, sign up. The rest of you, still pretty cheap, $125, or you can join SOCORA. So there's always a way, right? Now, I'm also getting a lot of questions about, because I had a sale earlier this year on some of my products. I got the Master HR Toolkit. We're going to look at that today, and that's the big toolbox that I have everything in. But I'm also getting a lot more questions about the Stop Bullying and Harassment Now video. This video does comply with the EEOC's harassment training requirements. And if you look at my website, there's the link, and you can go see what those requirements are. The sad thing is I'm not seeing a lot of associations or HR chapters who are teaching how to comply. So go take a look at that. And then there's my Supervisor Master Training Series. What is that? It's 10 videos of 90 minutes for your supervisors all across the board: emotional intelligence, overview of employment law, coaching, and everything. All of these are $100 off if you use the coupon code, and the coupon code is 100 off. So try to make it easy. If you've got any questions on that, just give me a buzz. Now, all of your certification codes are at the end of the handout. And let me just kind of explain how I do this. This is being recorded, so there'll be a video on this. The codes are going to be in the handout. So everybody should have gotten a Zoom invite from me, and then you should have also gotten a email from me directly that had the handout and another Zoom link, which is the same Zoom link. Okay, so those are at the end of your handout, and so those should be easy for you to write down. All right, any questions? Everybody getting it? All right, and you can also always chat me up. You can raise your icons and vote on different things. So that's why I'm looking over here. Make sense? Okay, well, let's get off to the races here. Sticky issues here. Who is exempt and who is non-exempt? Okay. When we're talking the minimum salary requirements, All right. There are two tests, really. One is for the EAP. As I hear more and more, that's fine. The executive exemption, the administrative exemption, and the professional exemption. So we're just going to focus on those three right now. Then we're going to look at the highly compensated employee exemption. So we're going to keep everything straight. That's the idea. Now, I'm going to share my screen in another way here because, okay, can everybody see my website there? There we go. Yep, that's me. Okay. Another reason I run two screens is so I'm challenging on my computer and Zoom experience. Okay, so those of you who are Master HR Toolkit subscribers, you go to my account, hit the downloads, because that's what's been downloaded. Ah, look at that, just like magic. How about that? And these are all some of the different products. That's the HR Master Toolkit subscription, because it updates every year. Well, we update it throughout the year. You click on that. Take a minute. Okay, look at all this mess. Look at all this stuff. Those are the contracts. Oh, by the way, with the NLRA, I had to update all of those. Handbooks, substance abuse, had to update all of those. There's your leave of absence forms. What am I looking for? More HR forms I'm going to use. There we go. The HR Professionals Complete Guide to Federal and Employment Labor Law. Okay, don't print it. It's a walking hernia of 800 pages. Do not print this thing. So let's say I want to see what's going on with wage and hour. So guess what? I'm going to click on this page and whip bam boom. Look at there. Everything's highlighted that's new. Well, I'm going to be updating this for there's child labor, overtime. No, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the exemptions. So I'm going to click that and it's going to take me right to it. There's my executive, administrative, blah, blah, blah. Compensation. Okay, that's what I'm going to be looking at. So it's all indexed with the power of Bill Gates, computer professionals, the salary basis test. I find everything I need to go and learn about it. Make sense? Okay, so let's go. I don't think that's going to take me back. Okay, so let's stop share for a minute here because my skills are limited. Okay. Well, there we go. Okay. All the stuff to read about it. And if you page further down, you will see that there are videos. That's what I'm trying to get to now. So let me get over there so you can navigate this thing and see what's going on. There we go. Okay. Please excuse my inabilities here. Doink. All right. So we're going to share our screen again. Let me ask you, how many people, you can chat me up or raise your hand, how many people would rather be read to than read? Raise my hand. How many people you like to be read to? You just listen. Okay, that's why I put these together. Okay, yeah, I think actually, I'm allergic to reading. I've done so much reading. So we're not interested in the ADA today. We're not interested in the FMLA. We are interested in, oh no, it's wage and hour. So what do? I want to find some stuff on this minimum salary. That's what I want to do. Okay, so here we go. FLSA, the payment of wages, travel time, exempt and non-exempt. There you go. You hit it, and boom, up comes a video for 12 minutes, and you listen to it. Okay, is anybody real confused? So, and as you can see, it's always being updated. So that's for you folks who are subscribers. Oh, thank you, Caroline. I like applause. That's wonderful. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that we are on top of things. So, yeah, it's a constant battle for me to keep this updated. And that's what I'm always trying to do. All right, so try to make it so it's easy to navigate. Make sense? Okay, well, now let's take a look at what we're going to talk about in order to be exempt. Now, understand, the law presumes everybody is non-exempt. The presumption in the law is that all of your people are exempt. And you, the HR person or administrator or CFO, you have to prove by clear and convincing evidence that that person is exempt. All right, has anybody ever heard someone say something like, and you can raise your hand, you can chat me up, whatever. Anybody here ever hear somebody say, well, it's close, but I think they're exempt? Ever hear that? Oh, lots of hands going, yeah. No, if it's close, you lose. Don't do that. And we're going to talk about that in more detail in a couple of weeks. But you got to pay exempt people the minimum salary. Now, you also have to pass the duties test, which we obsess over, and we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. And you got to pass the salary test, which means you better be real careful when you start counting hours on a salaried exempt person. No, they get paid for their services, not their hours. I have seen a lot of people declared non-exempt. And I'll tell you, this is a real Achilles heel. I've had this with some friends of mine. I had a dear friend of mine from high school who was just screwed over something terrible by her employer. It was all legal. It was just really, really crappy. Then I started talking to her about her wages and her status as an exempt employee. Bottom line was there was no way in the world she qualified under the duties test. Okay, so this was something that they did not expect. And guess what? $30,000 later, she was a happy camper. You have landmines behind you. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about in a couple weeks. Let's look at the minimum salary test. All right, a little too quick with my clicker there. Okay, now there's a little history here. January 1st of 2020, long time ago, the world went nuts because, oh my gosh, I got to raise my salary people. You got to pay them a minimum salary of $684 a week, which translates to $35,586. The world was coming to an end. It was just horrific. Okay, those were the good old days. What we got now? Now, as of July 1st, that minimum salary, and we're talking the EAP, executive, administrative, and professional exemptions. We're just talking those right now. As of July 1st, the weekly minimum salary for exempt employees is going to go up to $844 a week, which is $43,888 per year. That's when it's going up, and that's going to hit you like right quick. Make sense? All right. Now, that's not enough of the good news, okay? Because that's only going to stay there for about 6 months. That's it. Because come January 1st of 2025, the weekly minimum salary for exempt employees is going to go up to $1,128, which equates to $58,656 per year. All right. Now, let me just ask a question. Is that going to put a bit of a crimp in some of your budgets? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I've got a lot of clients here from the community action agencies. Okay. Another great group of folks. All right. So if you're sitting in as one of those folks, you have grants. You have grants, 2, 3, 4-year grants. Okay. Other people here on this call have grants. You have geared your budget for that grant. Now, those salaried exempt people who were at about $36,000 a year, they just got about a $32,000 or a $22,000 raise. Okay, now this gives you some choices to make. If you're going to raise them, that solves the problem, right? Now you still got the duties test to worry about. You still got the salary test. Because remember, salary is, are you counting hours? Or are you paying them for their projects, their work? Minimum salary is really like minimum wage. Well, look what's going to happen come January 1st. Some of you are going to make these people hourly. You're going to make them non-exempt because your budget cannot take the $22,000 a year-ish raise. Okay. How many people right here, you might be in that boat. You might be making some non-exempt people or some exempt people non-exempt. Absolutely. So that means you are going to have to start training these people, getting them indoctrinated to filling out time cards or timesheets or whatever your process is. And we're going to talk about the recording of hours, which is a huge, huge deal when it comes to non-exempt people. That is going to be a major hurdle for you. So you might lose some labor hours because we typically work exempt people 50, 60 hours a week. Well, I can tell you right now, you are going to have a real challenge here because you got to shift them, which is a whole mindset change, over to non-exempt where they're recording their hours. And you're going to lose hours of labor. Okay, so freeze right there. Is everybody understanding me? Good. Seeing this great when you got your cameras on. I can, see these going real well. Okay, excellent, excellent. Any questions at all on that? Or did you digest that pretty good? Or you got special questions? Because I want to make sure we're addressing what's on your mind. Everybody getting her? Okay, very good. All right, because we got more. So those are the minimum thresholds that are coming up. Now, the salary requirements do not apply to outside sales employees, teachers, or anyone who is a doctor or lawyer. Nobody cares about doctors and lawyers and how much they make. Nobody worries about that. But a lot of you out there, you've got teachers. You've got teachers, okay? So, minimum salary. Computer professionals. All right. That right there is different. Okay, so this minimum salary for computer professionals did not change. It did not change. All right, so that stays the way it is. And they're kind of, how many people agree that computer people are a little different? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even computer people will tell you that they're a little different. Absolutely. And that is true because of the nature of the beast, the nature of their profession. So you can pay computer professionals who meet the duties tests and everything. You can pay them. You can pay them $27.63 an hour. So, but nothing has changed with the computer professional. Okay, now the minimum salary. Okay, so every week I get my salary. All right, every week I get my salary. So what can happen with that salary? Well, you can satisfy, all right, 10% of that salary with non-discretionary bonuses and incentives pay. Now, that's going to be very, very, very different from the highly compensated people we're going to look at in a minute. But you can do that with 10% of their salary. Okay? So, we got a good question over here. When you talk about teachers in an after-school program or child care situation, Head Start, whatever, are the staff considered teachers? Debbie, great, great question. Actually, we will need to talk to see exactly what they do, because I've had to research this in the past, and the answer is yes, if they're acting as a full regular teacher, that is a teacher. That counts. But after-school tutoring, no, probably not. No, probably not. And I'll tell you, Debbie's got such a great question up here in the chat that we have to look at what it is that those teachers are doing. But one-on-one tutoring after school, probably not, but we'll need to research it. So who is a teacher? There's a lot of opinion letters and lawsuits out there about who is a teacher. So yeah, you kind of see, we get down into the weeds real quick. Carrie, does computer professionals mean IT staff or remote employees? That's a whole nother discussion, Carrie. These are people who are actually designing the programs. Your IT person who's going around and just fixing things, that isn't it. It is a much higher level of computer professional. But Carrie, we're going to talk about the computer professionals and that duties test in a lot more detail in a couple weeks. Yeah. So can you still meet the weekly requirements even if the commissions are only paid monthly based on the 10% rule? Yeah, but you've got to make sure that it's no more than 10%, Lynn. Okay. Is there an exemption test decision tree you use? No. Good question, Trevor. There is a checklist. And we're going to go through the exemption. And I'm assuming decision tree, Trevor, you're talking about the duties, because that's really where it gets tremendously complicated. Okay. What resources would you recommend? What I do is, and I put in all my materials, I put them in the videos that you can listen to. I go through absolutely what the regulations say. These are the duties that count. These are the duties that do not. And I take it right from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's mouth. I don't go with anything else. It's right from their mouth. So I set what duties do count in exercising independent judgment and blah, blah, blah. And then I look and see what that employee is doing. And if that employee is just following the directions of other people, then they're not going to be exempt. Yeah, we got a good question here, or good comment here, that the fact sheets are very useful. They are, absolutely. I think it's kind of a, Joseph, you got a good point. It's just kind of difficult to go through and find all this crap. So I like to have my checklists ready to go. All right, so great questions. Is the definition of teacher inclusive of post-secondary public institutions? Oh yeah, most definitely that you are included as a traditional teacher. Oh yeah, where it gets really complicated is where it's are you a daycare or are you a Head Start? What exactly are you doing? Okay, are you a church school in which you're just a babysitter, or are you actually teaching the kids things? So you kind of see why we're going to do this in a couple weeks, because your questions are all home runs. Fantastic. We need 3 hours to go through all that. Okay, so I'll tell you, come with your questions. This is what makes it cook. Very good. Excellent. Okay, now let's go through minimum salary here for just a second. Okay. The required amount of compensation per week, that could be weekly. And let's just say we are taking a look at the minimum salary test here that's going to be in effect in a few weeks, the 43,000 and change. But what if you pay biweekly? Well, that would have to be 1,688. Salary of not less than 3,657 if you pay them by the month. So really, it's pretty simple. Depending on how you pay, it's got to work out to this 844, unless we go back to Lynn's excellent question. Well, what if I have them on a commission basis or sales basis in which they get an additional 10%? Perfect. Perfect. Absolutely. Okay, now what is going to happen in January? What's going to happen in January? All right, you got to raise that amount from 844 to 1,128. Okay, peachy. But what if you pay biweekly, twice a month? Well, now that's going to be $2,256, isn't it? And what if you pay on a monthly basis? 4,888. Okay, but the shortest payment that you can use is 1 week. Okay, so you kind of got to figure out how your systems are working. How do you pay people? Make sense? And you can do some simple calculations to get there. All right, everybody with me? Very good questions, very good. Okay, now, here, only the division of wage and hour would wonder about this, okay? Can an employer use any 52-week period? Yeah. Yeah, what a great example. How many people here, you're on a calendar year for taxes or what you pay people? You're on a calendar year. Most people? Yeah, yeah. How many people are on a fiscal year? Like maybe you run October to September. Okay, few people. Well, whatever it is, you got to identify what your period is, what your time period is, and stick to it. If you change it, no problem. You got to make sure people know, and then you do that. All right? Very good. All right. Now, before we sail away from the other tests, we just open this up here. Does anybody have any questions at all? Did we cover everything? Yeah.
Is there any chance, I've heard that, there are some lobby and business groups trying to protest this. Is there any chance it doesn't go into effect from your perspective?
I don't think so. I think this is where you're going to be. That's a great question. I think that this is here to stay. Now, you might have some groups trying to challenge this. That's fine. That's fine. But this is going in a couple weeks. Okay. And it's very rare to have somebody block something that the EEOC is doing. Okay, now this is quite an increase. This is quite an increase, particularly if you look at what is going to happen in January. Let me give you an analogy. All right. This is exactly what is happening with the Federal Trade Commission and the non-competes. Okay, now the Federal Trade Commission came out and just completely wiped out these non-competes, all right, for the most part. And, you know, so that's what the status of the Federal Trade Commission is right now. That doesn't mean some of these lawsuits aren't going to change that over, okay? Maybe someone could get a federal court to put a hold on this, but personally, I would be surprised. It was out for opinion for well over a year. And so they've really collected a lot of data. And I'll show you at the end here where they're basing this data, because that's going to show you what's going to happen, not just January 1st, but every 3 years, because this is on an escalator. All right, it's going to go up every 3 years. So you're not going to just deal with this now. You're going to deal with this every 3 years. So you never say never. You never know. But I wouldn't hold my breath on it, because you got to be ready to comply. If something's going to put a stop to it, it's going to be sometime between July and probably January. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. But that's going to have to be a federal court who comes in and does that, which could happen. We got a question here. If you're classified as exempt and the company made you track your time on a time card, is that illegal? Your lunch punches, things like this. Sheila, what a great question. And we can look at that in more detail in a couple weeks. But the short answer is, why are you having them track their time? The employee might say they're doing this because they want to make sure I'm working 40 hours a week. If that's the reason, you just invalidated their exempt status under the salary test. You're not allowed to do that. If you're doing it for billing purposes, if you're doing it for purposes of maybe bonusing that employee, because there are companies who give time off or give bonuses based on overtime to exempt people, but it's not time and a half. It's like, hey, if you work 50 hours, we'll give you X. You better have a good legal reason for doing it. But I will tell you right now, I want to make sure that that reason is clear. I don't want it to be a pretext for really just trying to make sure I want to make sure my people are working this. Micromanaging exempt people turns them into non-exempt people. Let me say that again. Micromanaging exempt people turns them into non-exempt people. And that could be one reason that we're counting their hours. Another one is, I don't trust people enough to make independent judgment decisions. So guess what? 1 or 2 or 3 people in the whole organization, they're the ones who really exercise independent judgment. Micromanagers kill exempt status. So we'll talk about that with the duties test in a couple of weeks. So you kind of see, we're going to spend more time going into all these things, because you can't really talk about wage and hour without talking about all these other types of issues. It's like pulling the thread on a sweater. Never do that, because it's going to affect the whole sweater, right? You cut it off, okay? Mary Ann is saying last time around the final number was changed at the last minute. Is that likely to happen again for the January deadline? That could be. That could be. Let me explain, though, just for I believe it's the EAP, the Executive, Administrative, and Professional. I believe that has been raised to, actually, let me check here in my slides to make sure. That has been raised to the 35th percentile of what all exempt people make in the lowest paying region. And the lowest paying region happens to be the South. Okay. If they change the amount, then they will have to change that percentage, which could happen. I am quite sure that there U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth or anything, but there are going to be organizations out there who are preparing to battle this. Absolutely. Because look how much money you're talking. These are substantial changes. So honest to God, stay tuned. I mean, I send out e-blasts all the time. And if that happens between now and our seminar, we'll talk about it. And if that does happen sometime at any time, well, guess what? We're going to be holding a special lunch and learn to talk about that. What did the court say? What is on hold? What do you have to do? But yeah, I think you need to be preparing right now. And the big preparation is, are we going to raise people up to these amounts? Or are we going to make them non-exempt and they have to track their time and they get overtime for anything over 40? Those are pretty much your two choices. That's what you got to decide. Okay. Trevor's given us another good one. If we do not determine to use something other than calendar year default, will make-up payments be required for 2024? For example, we may increase the salary for my current salaried employees in July. They will not meet the calendar year threshold till next year. Yeah, I think it's going to work out if I'm understanding you correctly, Trevor, because let's just say that you run your calendar year from fiscal year, like October 1st to September 30th, let's just say. Okay, well, it's still going to work out for that year. You see, it's still going to work out for that year because you start paying them the amount in July, and then you're going to have to boost them again in January. As long as you keep up with when these changes come in, yeah, they're going to look ahead at what your calendar year is. So you'll be fine. You'll be fine. It gets kind of funky.
So year one,
yeah,
July, we have 6 months that were not paid at that new rate.
right.
So if we make that change mid-year, they're never going to meet that new threshold until the following year. I guess maybe
right.
maybe I'm thinking of it right. So I just want to make sure that we didn't have to make up those first 6 months to satisfy 2024.
No, good question. Good question. Because yeah, I see what you're saying is we're not going to make it that first year. You're absolutely right. You're not going to. It's going to have to look ahead to see if you're on track for that, because the law or the regulations don't take effect till July 1st. So you're not expected to comply right now. So you comply with those dates and you'll be fine because you're looking ahead and you're showing, yeah, this is working out. It's fine. That's why they have that weekly amount. And that basically goes back to what Lynn was asking about with those 10% bonuses. Yeah, you can put those in there. Yeah, great question. Automatically qualify for insurance. Carrie, we should talk about that in more detail in another discussion, because that whether or not somebody qualifies for benefits is another hour. Okay, not related to wage and hour at all. Actually, maybe that's a better answer. Not related to wage and hour in any way. So we're not going to be concerned about wage and hour. You're more concerned about what you choose with your insurance company for who qualifies for benefits. And it's kind of funny when you're talking health and prescription benefits, the world is your oyster. There's all kinds of things. Hospitals, you tend to qualify maybe if you work 2 days a week, because that's the nature of the business. I don't know of any bank who does that. Okay. But you kind of see you're kind of there for your business. Make sense? Okay. Now, I want to make sure this is really clear. We are going to sail away from the island of EAP, executive, administrative, and professional. Completely leave that behind. A totally separate type of exemption are the highly compensated employees. Totally different. The two are completely unrelated. Okay, so in January 2020, 107,000 and some change is where the annual highly compensated employee amount went to. But you had to pay them on $684 a week. You had to give them at least that. Okay, now you see right there, do the math. $684 a week does not come anywhere close to 107,000. So here you've got a lot of leeway for how much you pay them each week compared to where they have to end up at the end of the year. So you kind of see this is going to be very different because, well, back then nobody felt sorry for someone making $107,000 a year. All right, so what's happening now? We are going to go July 1st. We're going to go from $107,000 a year to $132,900 and change. That is a big pop. That's a big pop, right? So instead of that 600 and change you had to pay them each week, now you got to pay them $844 a week. And that is all going to take effect in a few weeks. July 1st. Okay. Now, this has nothing to do with the executive, administrative, and professional test. I can't stress that enough. These are usually your executives, could be some other people, professional people, or something like this, depending. But it's going to go up to 132,000. Okay. Then, come January 1st, you're going to have to raise them up to $151,000 a year. This is going to catch a lot of people. A lot of people. And they got to have a minimum salary of $1,128. Okay. So you kind of see, you're paying maybe somebody $60,000 a year. Well, yeah, that's going to qualify. But at the end of the year, you better be coughing up another $91,000 for these people somewhere. So you kind of see it works very different. Does it make sense? All right. Those are the minimum salaries that are going to be going into place. Okay. Now let's look here. We got a chat here. Would this be for an IT professional? It could be. Actually, Carla, that is a great segue. Okay. Let me just sort of give you an example. I'm going to come to your question here. Okay. So the weekly amount for somebody, $844 at $132,000. Okay. That weekly amount has to be paid in its entirety. There's no commission or anything. You got to pay that full amount. So you kind of see here's another difference between the EAP test, the executive, administrative, and professional. You cannot use discretionary bonuses or anything to hit that weekly salary, which kind of makes sense because that weekly salary is just a portion of what that annual salary is. Okay, so just want to make sure. Now, to make up the total compensation for the year, oh yeah, you can use a lot of bonuses and non-discretionary income for that. Okay, now let's look and see here, because I felt compelled here. What is the big difference? What's the big difference? Why would you pay somebody on the highly compensated when more than likely it's your CEO, it is your COO, it's your CFO? Maybe they qualify under the EAP test, the executive test. Well, maybe so. But you kind of see, let's say you got somebody making $140,000 a year. Well, let's say, yeah, they're going to qualify under the new July number of 132,000. Okay, you got to pay them all this stuff, okay? The employee's primary duties includes performing office or non-manual work, and the employee customarily and regularly performs at least one of the exempt duties or responsibility of one of the EAP tests. Now, let me explain in English. You're going to pay somebody, you're paying somebody $140,000 a year right now, let's say, so you don't have to make any changes at all. You're golden. You're good. And you're paying them, I don't know, $1,000 a week, and you're bonusing them at the end of the year. Okay, they're doing office or non-manual work. So now what do we have to do? For the duties test, just the duties test, that's where we're going to take some time and look at this in a couple weeks. Is there one exempt duty? or responsibility that they have that falls under the executive, administrative, or professional employee. So to answer your question, yeah, I got an IT person who's making, $160,000 a year. Well, maybe that IT person doesn't fall under the executive, administrative, or professional employee because you've got all those duties. But what we would do, Carla, is we would go and we would take a look and see, okay, this person's making 180,000 a year. So is there one responsibility or duty that they are using under those duties tests for executives? So we would go through, and this gets up to what Trevor was talking about. What are those duties that qualify? Well, let's go through them. Let's take a look. Okay, we struck out. There's nothing there. Is there something in the administrative? More than likely. Are they regularly performing one of those duties? So you kind of see, if you're making enough money, passing the duties test gets a lot easier. Does that make sense for everybody? That's a great question, Carla. That's fantastic. Is everybody digesting that okay? Yeah. You got to think of it like a really big, absolutely horrible board game. Terrible board game. Okay? Now, let's go through, a total compensation. Okay? So come July, $132,000 and some change. Come January, $151,000 and some change. Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. Commissions, non-discretionary bonuses, other bonuses, pretty much no board and lodging, none of the payments for medical or life insurance can be counted, and none of the contributions to their retirement plan. So we're going to be looking at commissions and bonuses and that kind of stuff. Everybody with me? All right, because you see there's a huge gap between the weekly salary and the annual. Okay, so now there is a special rule that if somebody leaves, this kind of gets back to Trevor's question, then let's say you work only 9 months of the year, say it's 2 years down the road, you're in the swing of things, and someone leaves after 9 months. You're good because it would be prorated for that period of time. Okay, Carla's got another question. So if the IT person is not meeting the required salary, then we need to increase their pay. Well, Carla, maybe. So let's say you got a guy who is making $130,000 a year, IT person, and they qualify maybe under one of those duties for the exempt, administrative, and professional that you can go through and you say, oh yeah, here they're doing this. Well, yeah, you'd probably want to raise them maybe $3,000 and you could make them exempt. Yeah. Now, come January, that number is going to go up to 151,000 and some change. So you see, you got some decisions here to think, okay, they're going to work more overtime. All right, time and a half. So I'm better off to give this guy an extra 10 grand or an extra 5 grand and hit that minimum salary for the highly compensated if they are doing one of these duties. Yeah, so you kind of have to look at them. Well, if they're already exempt, Carla, under IT, because understand there's several different buckets to fit in. So maybe your IT people are already fitting into one of the EAPs. Maybe they're fitting into the computer professional one. Well, then you don't really have to worry about the highly compensated test anymore. You see, everyone who makes a lot of money, which Wage and Hour is saying this is a lot of money, doesn't have to go into the highly compensated. They might go into the other one. Okay? Make sense? All right. Employers at the end of the year, you can make a single lump sum payment to an employee to make up this amount. So you get to December or something like that, and you see that you're going to run short, you can bonus that person. So after January 1st, 2025, if you have an employee whose annual compensation does not total 151,000 and some change, by the last pay period, you can make one final payment to that employee to bring that employee's annual salary up. Now, it has to be made within the last period of that year, or, and here's a big or, within 1 month after the end of the 52-week period. So yeah, you could make bonuses to people who didn't hit their threshold. And let's say you're on a calendar year, you could do that in January. You'd be fine. Okay, so here's a real life example, let's say. Okay, January 1st, I got an employee who earns $90,000 a year in their base salary. Okay, and we thought for this year that they would also be getting $65,000 in commissions. So that would give us a total salary for the year of $155,000 projected. It didn't work out that way. The employee actually earned $30,000 in commissions, less than half what we thought. So the employee now has an annual salary of $120,000. Okay, that is a problem. Okay, so are you going to go back and pay this person overtime, time and a half for all the hours they worked over? Probably not. So what are you going to do? Within a month after the year ends, you are more than likely going to cough up $31,164 so that they have $151,164 in their pocket for that year. Okay, is everybody with me? Everybody understanding that? So yeah, you got this nice little safety valve at the end of the year. Okay, nice little safety valve. Don't have that with the EAP tests. And understand, most people who fit into the highly compensated category, most of them already qualify under one of the EAP tests. But every so often, someone doesn't. Every so often, someone doesn't. So we use the highly compensated. The highly compensated test was meant to be easy. It was meant to be easy. And let's just be real here. There are a lot of people out there making $200,000 a year or more. So why do we want to put them in the highly compensated test? Because it's easy. You go, you pick out one of those categories in the EAP test of duties, you apply it to that person, whip, bam, boom, you're done. Easy, easy, easy. Okay, makes sense? Okay. You just got to work through it, and that's why we're trying to take the time to do this. Melissa's saying, is that only for highly compensated, or does that count for the minimum salary employees? Melissa, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Is what only applying to the highly compensated? Are you referring to the amount you can pay them at the end of the year? Because 10% of your salary under the EAP tests can work. Okay, so let me get my chat to move here a little bit. So here, the bonus, yeah. The discretionary bonus is well, lump sum, whatever you want to call it. That really is only applying to the highly compensated, and you kind of see why, because there's a huge gap between what you're paying somebody every week and what they're supposed to get for the whole year. All right. Oh, Beth. Hey, Beth. Can you count profit sharing as part of their salary? Yeah. Actually, the example we just gave, let's say that's profit sharing, you can call it commission or whatever, and it didn't pan out. So guess what? You got to bonus them at the end of the year. Great. Your wheels are turning just the way they should. Okay. Now, in case you're not having enough fun with this, let's make it even more interesting. Starting July 1st, 2024, every 3 years, the Department of Labor is going to check these levels and see if they need to go up. Not going to check it January of every year. They're going to check it in July of every year and let you know that it's time to go up. Now, here's what I was talking about before. The executive, administrative, and professional minimum salary level, they're going to check that against the 35th percentile of weekly earnings of all full-time non-hourly workers' salary. Okay? And they check that against the lowest wage region, census region, which is in the South. Okay, so the 35th percentile of what is tracked by the census in the South, and this is up from the 20th percentile. Okay, now, as of January 1st, the regulations are going to move the weekly or the annualized earnings to the 85th percentile of full-time non-hourly workers, and that went up from the 80th percentile. Okay, so these are all based on percentiles as to what's going to happen into the future. Okay, Caroline, will that make the effective date 7/1, or will we need to retro any additional pay? There's no retroactive pay at all, because you don't have to comply with the regulations until the regulations kick in. Don't have, when they kick in, you got to do it. Okay, after that, you just keep doing it. All right, but no, you won't have to make anything to, it's kind of what Trevor was asking, which was a really good question. You really do not have to go back and make up to make it fit for this calendar year, because for the first calendar year on both of these changes, you're going to be behind, right? Because here we are going to start on July 1st. Well, yeah, the person is not going to make that minimum salary for the EAP or the highly compensated employee for 2024. Okay. Oh, Debbie. Hey, Deb. I'm traveling out of the country on June 1st, but would love to hear the information. Yes, all of my, great question. And that's actually, we had like 300 people who signed up today. We ended up with like 130. Everybody's always got something going on. I understand that. I got stuff going on. And sometimes we've had to reschedule these because we got stuff going on. All right. Let me just make it really clear. I record these. Okay, so for these are posted for free. Well, we're going to spend 3 hours, a whole afternoon. Then you go to my website and hit the upcoming webinars and seminars. Go down to the paid 3-hour seminars and enroll. You enroll. Okay, so I'll get the registration in. You will then receive the materials from me and the link to come to the session. If you miss the session, and I got a lot of people who intended to be in the session, but they got sick. Okay, that happens too. These are always recorded. If you signed up for the session, these are always recorded for you to watch whenever you want. You've already paid for them. You automatically get the link, and it's there for as long as you want it. You can even download it to your website or to your hard drive, okay? And if you go to my website and hit products and hover, there's videos for sale. The one that I did on why are all of my policies illegal under the NLRA, that's sitting there waiting for you, okay? And the one on adventures in babysitting, how to identify and deal with hypersensitive and offensive people, those are sitting there. So yeah, this happens an awful lot whenever people are trying to plan a webinar. And I know webinars are a lot more convenient, but things still come up. So great question. Yes, the short answer, I record everything. And if you want to make sure you get the recording, you just sign up and you'll automatically get it. Julie's asking here, if there are employees that are currently exempt but below the new minimum, how do you recommend setting the hourly rate if the decision is to change them to hourly? That is a huge employee relations nightmare, Julie, because they're going to get overtime and you are probably going to tick a lot of people off if you don't give them the same hourly rate that they're getting now. So let's say that I make, let's say $40,000 a year. Okay. You can't afford to give me another 3 or whatever that's going to be. Okay. So what I've seen is making that person non-exempt with their current rate. So they're going to make the same amount, but we don't want them going over 40 hours a week because we don't want them to be paying overtime because we can't afford it. Okay. Cutting their hourly rate back so that they will work more hours and the overtime works out to the same. I'll be very careful there because that is a good way to get a lot of upset people. That's a good way to, with some of these folks, to get a union, depending on what their position is. And you got to work it out with that person. You got to work it out with that person. But pay issues, bread and butter issues are dangerous. So great questions. All right. Hey, everybody, hope to see you all here on June 21st. We are going to spend the afternoon talking about all these great questions, and bring your questions with you. We're going to take an in-depth, painful look at who's exempt, who's not exempt, the salary test, the minimum salary test, everything you didn't want to know about wage and hour. All right. Okay. Hey, thank you all. It's great seeing you, and I will be seeing you soon. Don't forget, June 21st, sign up.